We're talking about CBD today. So here's the news. It's a huge thing in Germany, which is not news at all, I know. Which is neither is the fact that regulation in German European market is still a bloody mess. So what we're going to do today, what we're going to do today is we're going to look for an update, like where we're standing at the moment, what are we heading for, and I'm really, really happy to have like 3 great experts sitting here to join the panel. Like the first one is Jan Peter Witte. He's the managing director of Viamed and director medical of the Sanity Group, one of the biggest Germany's biggest superstar companies in CBD business, we can say like this. As is Sebastian Kamphorst, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mechanics, also here in Berlin, and Bostian Janschar. He is the managing director, he's chief technology director of Pharma in Slovenia. So we're combining expertise from medical, consumer care, and technical standpoint, which will make very great. I'm loving it. So let's go. Where we're standing at the moment, let's do it as short as that. We see that the market is still growing and growing, but there's big confusion about regulation in Germany. Can you give us a little overview where we're standing with the market at the moment? Maybe you can start.
I think it's challenging at the moment because we find ourselves confronted with 3 different levels of regulation, 3 different levels. We have the regional level here in Germany, where we fight to understand the interpretation of laws by regional authorities, as well as the implementation. How strict are they looking at it? And this is really very different in different areas. It really depends on your local authority how strictly this is implemented. So we're looking to the German government and say, okay, we would like to see a clear regulation for CBD that allows us to bring a safe product into the market. And the response of the German government has been pointing towards the USA case novel food. This is not a national issue, this is a European Union issue, which doesn't make it very easy for them to say this is not really our problem, it's on the European Union level. However, there are German regulations, like the amount of THC that is allowed within the product, and just recently, just in the last days, there's been a recall of hemp products by one of the biggest retailers in Germany, which is Lidl, who had to actually recall it back because of too high THC levels. So there is an interaction. We had this discussion before about hemp production and THC levels, so I'm not going to go into this. So then we go to the European Union on this level, and what do we see? We see it's novel food. You have to apply for it. It's a long process. It's a lot of things are unclear. So we're looking to the European Union, want to have better regulations on that level. However, it is extremely difficult to lobby for regulations within the European Union unless it comes from a specific country. The country has an interest to regulate it, puts together forward, it's much easier. I'm not seeing this at the moment, that there's this one country that is really driving the policies. So in this field, you have to figure out, can I bring out safe products as cosmetics? What's the difference between cosmetic and food supplement? Is food supplement possible at all, or is it all novel food? If I cannot bring it out novel food, how much leeway do I have on the regional level until I have a novel food, I can market it under novel food? How much leeway do I have on the regional level to actually bring the product out, maybe under a certain different level? So this is like just round up the whole picture. This is where we're playing on those three fields, and all that's happening is on those three different fields. It's very difficult to navigate as a company through those fields because you have to look at all of them.
Thank you very much. And as you obviously saw, there are like a lot of different technical and legal aspects. So that's really deep dive into one of them. As you mentioned, there's a big issue still to talk about the 0.2% THC thresholds that you have for CBD products in Germany. It leads to a lot of very weird cases in the German market. So I would first like to ask you, Bastian, what is your view on that from a technical perspective? You said it leads to some certain insecurities over regulation and market. And what are the repercussions of this?
Okay. Well, the first thing, you need to know what the concentration of THC in your sample or product is. So what we need is a common regulation that would prescribe the proper methods for the analysis. So one way to go is to use the existing ISO standardization for the laboratories. So if the above laboratory is accredited according to ISO 1725 standard, then this laboratory is a laboratory that you believe. So basically, first, every product needs to be analyzed in accredited laboratory. You need to take the measurement uncertainties into consideration, and then this product becomes viable for the market. So basically, what we need here is a unified view of the analytical processes in cannabis. So I can tell you from my experience that when you analyze samples in laboratories across Europe, even much worse in the United States, you get a range of results. So let's say we would have a sample that would be clear, but our internal quality service, Pharma, for instance, would have the highest number would be 0.17 that our quality control would still get it through. But then I can send it to a couple of labs that will show 0.22 of THC. So taking into consideration the 15% uncertainty, which it is at that concentration, you shouldn't put anything on the market which is above 0.17. So basically what we get is the range of numbers from 0.22 to 0.11. So this is something that needs to be considered when you put your products to the market or when you buy the products as a consumer. So this is a big mess in the business. But when I said accreditation, so there's ISO 1725 accreditation for the laboratory. So let's touch the certificates a little bit. Because, like Jan mentioned, there's a mess, so let's continue with the mess. So when you go to the market, people will say, okay, we are GMP certified. Or even worse, the Americans would say we have the CGMP, which means current GMP. It's nothing special, the C in front of the GMP. But what exactly does this GMP refer to? So let's take it from the beginning. So you can have if you're a producer of the cosmetic products, you can have the ISO 22617, I think it's called, the certification. And this is called GMP Good Manufacturing Practices for Cosmetic Products. Okay, so you can be honest and say, I have GMP for cosmetic products, which is basically an ISO 22716. That you can get that certificate, you can get awarded the certificate by several companies. One is SGS, for instance, the other is Bureau Veritas. So this is one GMP that you can be dealing with in the cannabis business. The second, one step further, is basically the good manufacturing process for certification for food supplements. So this is the next level. So now we have two GMPs. Again, you can ask your provider with what type of the GMP you have, the one for the cosmetics or the one for the food. Okay, then there's an ISO accreditation for the laboratory. So this is all in the business already. It doesn't need to be reinvented for cannabis. So it it exists. So basically, then become what everybody would like to have and what everybody would like to advertise. But the final GMP is the GMP that is connected to the active pharmaceutical ingredient. So as you know, last year, German Pharmacopoeia, Deutsches Arzneibuch, published monograph on standardized cannabis extract. So this automatically means that all European medicines agencies can approve production of API from the cannabis extract. But the rules are simple, so it has to have THC content between 1 and 25, and CBD content, whatever is advertised, plus minus 10%. So basically, this is the real GMP. But for this GMP, you need ISO 8 premises, and the whole flow of materials and people was standardized according to the rules of European Medicine Agency and all local agencies. So what I want to say is this big mess is most common in cannabis business because everybody wants to say we are GMP certified. So the message here is take-home messages. Check what kind of GMP the provider is offering. Maybe to start with further complicated.
Yeah, I'm thinking about at what point we could go and make it more complicated now.
Okay.
Because I mean, all this kind of regulation, let me be frank, we started with this analytical issues of THC thresholds in CBD products, and you can talk about the uncertainties. I mean, doesn't it render it kind of useless considering that we are working with different thresholds in different countries, even debates to change those thresholds, for example, as they're going on in Czech Republic or Poland. I mean, doesn't that also have like some pretty serious repercussions for producers? For example, here in Germany, you get their commodities from there. Like, what do you think about it, Sebastian? Like, what effects do you see from that? Especially when it comes to, like, for example, farming and so on.
Yes, we're an extracting company, so we have just one commodity which we buy. This is biomass from our farmers. And there's a ratio, you can only use European varieties from the catalog. And the seeds that European farmers can use have a ratio of about 1 to 35 between THC and CBD. So as long as the limit is 0.2%, as it is currently, you get, like, if you go up to 0.15, you get a CBD concentration of maximum 3, 4, 5%. Once you have the threshold of 0.2 lifted up to 1%, you can get 5 times more CBD in the biomass. Biomass is paid by the concentration of CBD. For us, as an extraction company, we have fixed costs. Doesn't matter if it's 2% or 5% or 10% CBD, and starting from somewhere, you have profit. So of course, our aim is to buy biomass with as high concentration of CBD as possible. As long as the THC concentration, the limits of biomass differs in countries, certain countries will not be able to offer in the future farmers the possibility to sell hemp biomass. For example, like we are located in Berlin, Poland is about 1 hour drive from us. The Czech Republic is about 2 hours drive from us. Munich is 5 hours. If in Poland and the Czech Republic, the limit will be lifted to 1%, we will buy from farmers in the Czech Republic and in Poland. Because the consumer doesn't matter like for him from where the biomass comes from, he's looking to the price. So this is really an important issue that we have in the European Union, the same limits, and as you have heard earlier from politicians, it doesn't matter if it's 0.2 or 0.6 or 1%, but then I would go with 1% because it is for us as European producers like the possibility to also compete with the Americans and Canadians who are not bounded to the catalog of European varieties. And their varieties is 10, 15 or 20% of CBD, so pricing should be always much lower always.
That sounds like you're calling for harmonization of like European regulatory framework. At the same time, I remember Julian once telling me that you consider those calls for European Union, harmonization of European Union regulation to be kind of like pretext, I think was the word you used. Why do you think so?
We can wish for a lot of things on harmonization. The question is how it's going to be implemented. And yes, I see from industry point of view, what can you do as an industry get into this dialogue. And I think there have been some good examples here in Berlin and Germany to actually actively engage in discussion as the industry, to organize itself as an industry. There's of course INA on the European level. They're doing a good job on the European level and supporting the novel food applications. It's very important if you use Germany to be in contact with them. But even in Germany, we have several new groups that are dealing with this problem. There's an initiative which is called Whole CBD, which is organizing the industry. There is also the Cannabis Business Industry Association from Jürgen Neumann is here. See right now, but address him as well because this is a topic that they're dealing with. And it's important that we as an industry, we're not against regulation. That's the misunderstanding. I think it's very important to have a clear framework and to know exactly how and where the borders are. And I think there's some good suggestions, for example, that about to harmonize testing or methods within the company, to also show those certificates openly, that I can see for every batch that has been tested, that the consumer and the authorities can check this at any time. Those are things the industry can do, and I think that's still not going to change European Union regulation, because this is very tricky, but it's going to help to do this on a local level. The last initiative I want to point out, which I find kind of interesting, is Berlin Partners. Berlin Partners is a public-private partnership to support companies in Berlin to settle down in Berlin. And they recently found a cannabis group for cannabis companies, and trying to make this dialogue between the local authority, or trying to implement a dialogue between the local authorities and the companies, to actually discuss those issues and try to find solutions. How do we safely, how can we implement consumer protection in a way that everybody's satisfied? Because I think this is the main point. Regulation should be always about consumer protection. I think with the whole discussion we had so far about we're looking always from the perspective: is it cosmetics? Is it novel food? Is it food supplement? But the main focus should be the question: is this effective consumer protection? And I think the more complicated it gets with regulation, the more companies are forced to look for loopholes, and this is counterproductive for consumer protection. Clear regulation, clear rules. I think the industry is not against it, but it should be practical. It should be looking at millions of consumers who are doing this one way or another, with a safe product or without a safe product. And I think this is a good dialogue that we have to actively engage in, and not wait for the miracle to happen that something's going to happen on national or European level. Never bet on changing regulations. So really go into the active dialogue here.
I think especially like this, if you speak about consumer protection, it's a consumer goods that we sell, and what authorities did is educate novel food. So you said your company is certified. I assume it's IFS Cosmetics.
Well, it's for cosmetics and also for the production of food supplements, but not from hemp. I mean, not containing CBD, because the entity will not issue the certificate as long as there's a novel food catalog out there. So basically, we do everything under the GMP conditions, but we don't have the certificate for the hemp, which Americans can have.
So we speak about consumer protection. It means all the products of CBD that are sold as cosmetics, because we're not allowed to sell food supplements here, we're allowed to sell flavors or cosmetics, and there's no regulation for them. You cannot even certify, you cannot show that our products are safe. We have different regulations in the European Union and in the US. Like there are certain toxic solvents which are used in the US, which are not allowed on the European market. No one is looking after them, because it's a food supplement from a certain standpoint, and therefore there's no regulation. This is not a product which is marketed for the moment. I think consumer protection is what everyone wants, also the authorities, not the way that they handled it was not the right way. What Jan said, the industry is really up to it. Like we say, okay, why don't we set like up an internet page, a web page, so authorities can proactively look at it, and every product we as a producer bring on the market, we upload the COAs. So if there's any question about it, look first on that page and you get the information. That's a very fast, uncomplicated way how we as an industry can support authorities, the startups, and also with product safety.
Maybe I can follow up on the 0.2 in plants that we raised just before. So as we know, the European Court of Justice cleared CBD as to be narcotic last year. So basically, I don't know about the German legislation or any other, but Slovenian legislation says that you can cultivate plants from the European sort list as long as they have less than 0.2% in dried biomass, which means the biomass should contain between 8 and 12% of water. So basically, so this is what you can cultivate. And there is no other law regarding CBD or hemp in Slovenia, for instance. I think it's similar across Europe. But now, when CBD is cleared by the European Court of Justice, what prevents you to import biomass from the United States? As long as you can keep it, what Europe now considers, even though the law does not say, now considers to be a drug which is 0.2%. So this is maybe good news for some extraction companies, but not so good news for European farming industry. But basically, this is a loophole that you were talking about. So one of the loopholes is if CBD is not correct, then you can import biomass.
Well, since I don't want to repeat my mistake from the last panel, just keeping everybody talking as much as I love it, that we still have to keep some space for questions. I would really like to finish with some kind of sum up. Do you think, given the obvious lack of harmonized regulatory frameworks in Europe, that some kind of that self-regulation within Germany and within Europe is superior to lobbying for state regulation? Should the industry just be more active and show more initiative to improve or even implement in the first place self-regulation? I know that, for example, with Pro CBD, you're both members of the association, that you're going that way. So, where are you exactly going? What do you think is the plan?
Where are we? I think from two sides. First of all, I'm really proud. I'm really proud about everyone who's in the industry. We are here since 3-4 years. There's no grants, no subvention. Actually, the authorities are working against us. In some cases, currently, I feel they are working with us. But we came quite a way. We have excellent products on the market. I guess everyone who's selling CBD products has customers who come to their office and say, "Thank you, you improved my life, or my dog, or husband, or whatever." And that all against what we see on a daily basis. So that's something. How can we improve? I would say it's supportive. I'm from the cannabis industry, I know my product is good, I know it's safe. On the other side, I also want the authorities to look at all the other products which I don't know, that they are safe. So what can we do? And one was, let's upload the COAs or the spec sheets, let's get a little closer here, but they also asked us to do some more studies. We have IA has a fantastic program now, they do a toxicological study on THC, which is necessary. Join IA, be members there, pay contribution, it's not a lot that you have to pay. In Berlin, it's a fantastic place to really settle. The city of Berlin is extremely supportive. We got a grant for research, so for tech, also for product development. But there's also a Berlin cluster where they really support all the companies who are in the cannabis industry. And when it comes to Pro CBD, there are two associations. It's also Verband für Cannabiswirtschaft and Pro CBD. I'm less a politician, to be honest. I run a company. It's not my field. But again, what I would say, transparency. Show, invite people, they really come. Politicians are very open on this topic, about every party. Every party on this panel was at our location just to speak, just to understand. And what they say, Brussels is far away. What can we do here? And then go back to Jan, what you said at the beginning. Tolerate us. It works in some states, it works in some TVs. Let us show that like we do good work, come in. Let us show you that our production standards are like IFS or ERC, those extremely high standards. And then these standards on the market until our normal food application, which are handed in, are approved. UK is an example which we would like to follow. The Netherlands, where it's only tolerated, is a good example which we can follow. If not, the Americans, the Canadians are collecting data, and if we cannot do the same, then in 3 or 4 years, when the market is open, there will not be European companies.
I would like to raise another whole issue, just on a very brief sentence, because I think if you're in the CBD business, what you're looking at is could we, as long as we don't have to know the food, under which legal framework can we do it under cosmetics or supplements or different things. But I think a much more interesting question, I think this is going to come up now that we have a company bringing out CBD on the European market as a medication, is where is the border between a CBD consumer product, a well-being product, a consumer health product, and medication to treat a disease, which obviously has very strict regulation and therefore is opening up a whole different sector for marketing, also for pharmaceutical regulation. So what I see is, as my point as a physician is let's go back to the very important thing. Let's look at consumers' health, and to protect consumers' health, we should look at how dangerous is the substance we're dealing with. We're talking about CBD, and there is data. There's plenty of data on safety, meaning we have a huge spectrum of between on one hand, let's say 400 milligrams, 800 milligrams in the medical context. And what I consider safe, about 70 milligrams as a consumer good. And I think looking at the consumers again is also looking at a change, and this is why the CBD came out. People take it on one end of the spectrum. People are taking CBD because it makes them feel better. On the very far end, there's a clear medical treatment. Seizures in children, it's very clear. And there's a huge field in between that I think should be limited by how safe the product is and give this field free for consumers' choice. For example, if I take CBD to sleep better, does not necessarily mean I have a disease like insomnia. It just, it helps me a little bit. And there should be some leeway for consumers to decide. And that's the main driver for the success of CBD. People just feel better that they know if I take it, something improves. But the question is, if for a company when I bring it out, is do I have to fear that the medical company one day will say, okay, your product with 70 milligrams, 200 milligrams, whatever the threshold is going to be like. I say this is going to be, that's medication, and that's not a thing. Then we have a whole different legal battle to fight for, and this is an uncertainty where I think we should have a clear regulation as well, saying up to this amount. And for me, this could be quite high because it's not a dangerous substance from a point of physician. This is something that we need to clear as well.
Great, that's a good ending word. And great timing because our beloved MC just showed we've got 10 minutes left for questions. So I'd really like to give it up to you. Are there any questions? I would guess so, right?
No questions at all? You've learned everything today.
Hungry, right?
The question is, when's lunch?
Okay. So then I would like to kind of one last, a bit more business topic, to be honest. Last years, it became really big, and seriously, you can just today open up the prospect of any grocery store chain, and you will find like a special offers on CBD products. All the stuff is, this coin has a flip side, because if you look at media reports and test reports or whatever, there has been some damage to CBD products in general. At least this is what I perceive in some certain groups of the people, to say it in the most general way. And we've been talking about like those differences about serious companies like yours, like the direction they're heading for medical CBD products, and with just serious, like high quality CBD products, How do you cope with this? Is there like a certain strategy of some kind of like market clearance that like those serious high quality companies are able to distinguish themselves? Is there a certain strategy that you have in communications, marketing? If you're mentioning the importance of transparency, what are your views on that? I'm very interested in that.
I think it's about branding. Like you can buy a Coke or you can buy bread or milk. You either buy it from a company where you trust in or not. If you have a bad experience, it means that maybe the milk is spoiled, but the milk itself it's still a product which you like to have.
Excuse me, I would like to. Yes, but like Coke is in the market for 100 years. Everybody knows Coca-Cola and can differ a Coca-Cola from a cheap fake Coke, however you want to call it. But CBD is still a pretty new market, and do consumers really have that kind of like experience or competence to differ different brands in CBD market?
I don't know if they do, but you don't go to a shop and you buy today a bread and some chewing gums and for 30 euro a piece of CBD. You don't do it. You have a problem. No? So you speak with people or you listen or you read on the internet and you see and read the stories that it helps. So it's a product that you buy in first hand does not help you. It was maybe the wrong product, you will try again. Maybe not directly, but after 6 months, it's still the same stories on the internet, you will try again. Because there are success stories, and to be honest, you have different extraction methods, you have different processes, companies who are certified, less certified. There are huge differences in quality on every product. So it's up to your brand to choose for a certain type of product, price it, and then I think it's a market really.
Well, I'd say just let's get certified and follow the rules about that for the cosmetics and the food supplements. Even though that if we're dealing with a novel food for the moment, let's get everything under the roof and let's get everything analyzed and accredited laboratories. So this is what we can do at this moment, I guess. And let's for general market, let's encourage the farmers to try to get certifications for sources that are not on the list at the moment. To make the business better.
I would sum it up with number one, be transparent. Number two, don't underestimate the customers. We're living in a different time of exchange. The knowledge among customers is spread way better. And number three is really go for the highest quality you can produce. And I think this is the way to success.
We actually have a question.
I know. Take your time. Hey, thanks a lot for helping us become educated on the UK market today. My name is Bo Whitney. I have an economics firm based out of Portland, Oregon. We look at the cannabis and higher THC end market. Our projections in the US market for the end of 2020 was that there were 201 million pounds of excess biomass in the market. So, would you recommend converting that into some form of isolate, CBD isolate, and shipping it into the European Union, flooding the market, lowering the prices, or would you recommend keeping that in biomass and trying to enter the market that way?
That's a question made for a tech officer, right?
Well, as far as I know, the US is already doing that. Because your biomass, the biomass with 10+% of CBD, probably has something about the numbers that you're talking about. This can be with relatively high conversion efficiency converted to the pure product, which in one of the rare industries, the pure product is cheaper than not so pure product, because it crystallizes. So basically, in US, with the hemp that you have at your disposal, you manage to produce isolate very cheaply. So I think that the cheap isolate that is in Europe is by far not made from the European source. When we're asking whether we should keep the hemp or flood the market, that's probably your business goal.
thinking.
It's a different product, right? Like who do you target? And then we come back to novel food, which will be the first product which will pass novel food application. But for you, I would say it's an isolate. So like from that point of view, you can already confirm it. Like when, maybe 2 or 3 years. So how long can you stop it? But it's a different product. And what we see here, consumers, at least in Germany, they are really looking for full spectrum. They're looking for the word entourage effect. And this isolate, it's just not there.
Yeah, just see what do I want. Of course, there's this region outside of Berlin, Brandenburg, which is actually helping hemp farmers to cross to hemp as a new business model. I like that because it's very close and it's bringing jobs. It's mechanics, which is producing in Berlin on an extremely high quality. Yeah, I would love to have this production in Germany, of course. Yeah, but it's international market. You know, if we do not adapt to that, then that's going to be the way it's going to be. And I think this is something that we have to talk with politicians over and over and over again. It's like, especially post-pandemic, is where do you want to create the jobs? You know, do you make it so difficult for the industry which is growing no matter what you do? Do you want to create jobs here or in the US or anywhere else in the world? This is always the question that you should look at. This is what we have to discuss with politicians.
Maybe German ones, Slovenians.
Well, may your words be heard. For sure. I think then, are there any other questions?
No, let's go to lunch.
Yeah, I'm still hungry, I can really see that.